Sim racing is one of the purest forms of competition out there. But is it really? What if I told you that some of the biggest races in iRacing history were shaped by clever, controversial exploits, all within the game's own limits? In today's video, we'll break down some of the biggest iRacing exploits that have sparked debates across the community, from ride height tricks to tire cooling, to gray area tactics at the Daytona 24 hours. These aren't cheats, they're technically exploits, and they force us to ask, where is the line between smart racing and unfair advantage? The most recent and by far the most viral exploit, Team Redline at the Nürburgring. It shocked a lot of people. One of the most respected teams in all of iRacing, Team Redline, backed out of the Nürburgring 24 hours for using an exploit that had never been seen on this stage before. This wasn't just any team. Team Redline is known for elite preparation, incredible speed, and of course its affiliation with Max Verstappen. So when they didn't appear on the starting grid after qualifying on pole, the live broadcast and fans watching were stunned, as you can hear here.
Lewis, I want some closing thoughts from you though, because there's already been some drama. We've seen the pole sitter and in fact a whole raft of cars, both Redline machines, towing to pit lane. I'm pretty sure they've selected wet setups and didn't change back onto the dry tires, and so a whole new front row as we get ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure as to how that's going to work for them, but clearly we'll be starting from the pit lane. Having all three cars have the same, in air quotes, mistake, I don't buy that. There's something going on there.
In reality, it was deliberate. Redline chose to start from the pit lane, removing themselves from the grid entirely. Why? To take advantage of a little known interaction that gave them a potential edge right out of the gate. Here's how it worked. For GT3 cars, the Nürburgring requires a minimum ride height of 70 millimeters, higher than the typical 50 millimeters seen at most other circuits. This rule is meant to handle the Nordschleif's harsh bumps and elevation changes. But in iRacing, wet weather tires are 2.5 millimeters thicker than the dry slicks. By loading the car with a specific fuel setup and passing pre-race tech on the thicker rain tires, Redline was able to legally meet the 70mm minimum ride height. Then, instead of taking the green flag, they stayed in the pits. When the race officially begun, they switched to slicks, which are thinner. The tire change combined with the earlier fuel load lowered the car's ride height by as much as 5mm, without triggering a tech violation for too low of ride height. The result? A lower car, more grip, less drag, and a clear aerodynamic advantage for the entire race. As word spread and complaints rolled in, iRacing Control, Nim Cross, responded directly in the server chat, citing violations of the sporting code. The message was clear. iRacing viewed this as a deliberate, unsporting exploit, even if it technically followed the letter of the law. Team Redline's cars eventually withdrew from the session, mainly from public backlash, a rare and public move in a top split event. What made it more controversial was the source. This wasn't a mid-pack team trying to bend the rules that may not have been seen on the broadcast or others. This was Team Redline. And even more surprising, as of now, this exploit still hasn't been patched. The loophole involving wet tires, fuel load, and ride height still exists in iRacing's current build, leaving the door open for similar drama in the future. This wasn't a software cheat or an external tool, it was a deep understanding of how iRacing systems interact. But when that kind of knowledge is used at the highest level by the most elite team in sim racing, it forces the community to ask, where's the line between preparation and exploitation? Apron abuse and tactical blocking. In the 2023 Daytona 24-hour event, controversy erupted when the Williams Esports drivers used a pair of strategic moves in qualifying and the race that many called unsporting, if not outright unethical. During their qualifying run, Williams' main car used the apron, the flat area beneath the banking on the oval portion of the track. The move wasn't technically illegal at the time, but it clearly defied the intended track limits. Then, during the race, a second car from their team in the slower GT3 series raced with the sole purpose of towing the main car down the straights and blocking competitors, deliberately interfering with the other teams while giving their teammate a clear advantage. The sim racing community reacted fast and harshly. YouTubers and Reddit threads broke down the incident in real time and backlash spread quickly. But what truly threw the fuel on the fire was Williams' own response, a now infamous tweet from team manager Seb Hawkins. Rather than denying or downplaying the tactic, Williams doubled down, essentially saying, if it's possible, we'll use it. This justification shocked many in the community who saw it as a complete disregard for racing ethics, especially coming from a professional, sponsor-backed team with real-world credibility. Despite the uproar, no formal disqualification occurred as the race was governed under iRacing's special event rules. However, suspensions and warnings were issued, and iRacing later clarified that apron usage like this would be considered illegal in future Daytona events, especially in top split broadcasts. A huge shout out to Pablo GZ, a driver in the event, who put together a detailed and well-produced video breaking down exactly what happened. Without his footage and analysis, much of this wouldn't have come to light. The Daytona exploit exposed something deeper. When esports teams are focused on winning for sponsors and visibility, some will go as far as they're allowed to, unless the game stops them first. And in this case, many felt the rulebook didn't fail, the spirit of competition did. Grassgate. Tire wear and cooling have always been a part of strategy in iRacing, but in one particular 24-hour event, things escalated to a new level, the 2023 Spa 24-hour. What made this different was the track layout and iRacing's current tire model that they were on. Spa's long straightaways like the Kemmel Straight gave teams a new tool to work with, the ability to drop a tire into the grass, just barely not to get a 1x, during the straight line sections of the track to help with tire cooling without the loss of pace or control. In iRacing's tire model, cooler tires tend to wear more slowly. By subtly cooling the tires throughout the stint in a straight line, teams were able to maintain slightly lower average tire temperatures across the run. The result was improved grip consistency and reduced wear over longer stints. This wasn't something setup related or officially documented, it was pure exploitation of the physics interactions, something only teams deep in the data would recognize. There were no protests, no official penalties, but word spread. Teams began studying outlap behavior, sector deltas, and tire wear curves. Spa became not just about precision, but finding microscopic advantages through tire temperature control in ways never intended. Since then, iRacing has made efforts to tune down the impact of these extreme temperature shifts, but the Spa tire cooling exploit showed just how far top drivers will go to maximize performance, and how track design can unintentionally open the door to subtle but game-changing techniques. And once again, the sim racing community had to ask, is this the mastery of sim or the beginning of a new form of exploitation? Tire prepping. While most eyes are on the race themselves, some of the most questionable behavior happens in qualifying, and it's nearly impossible to police. In iRacing, drivers have used a variety of odd tactics on their outlaps and warm-up laps that are designed to manipulate tire temperatures and optimize grip. These include dragging the brakes, driving unusually slow, and even doing burnouts before starting their flying lap. Dragging the brakes on outlaps helps heat the tires and brakes together, simulating more grip. Some drivers take this further, creeping around at a crawling pace to prevent the tires from heating up. Throughout the years, iRacing's tire models have changed, and all of these odd tactics have evolved over time. These actions aren't illegal, but they fall into a gray area that clearly pushes the edge of sporting intent. There's no formal rule against these actions, but they raise the same question we've seen before. Where's the line between preparation and exploitation? In qualifying, these small actions can lead to huge advantages, but policing them, nearly impossible. That said, iRacing has since responded by making qualifying more restrictive. Drivers can now receive a black flag for erratic or disruptive behavior during qualifying, and importantly, qualifying laps are now publicly viewable by all drivers in the session, a transparency change that has added a layer of accountability to this process. But with that being said, there's always games being played in qualifying, especially when iRacing's tire model is always evolving and everyone's trying to get the best that they can get out of it. Across these four exploits, whether it's tire cooling, ride height manipulation, or qualifying tricks, one thing is clear. The line between smart strategy and unsporting behavior in iRacing is not always black and white. These aren't hacks or obvious cheats, they're examples of how deeply teams understand the sim and how far they're willing to go for an edge. But when these edges start bending the spirit of the rules, the integrity of competition gets tested. To iRacing's credit, changes have been made, from live race control interventions to updated qualifying enforcement, but in a sim where every 10th matters, new exploits will always surface. That's the nature of competitive innovation. The real question is, how should we handle them? Should iRacing step in faster? Should the community self-police? Or are these just part of high-level racing culture? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you see these as smart racing or crossing the line? And if you've seen other questionable tactics in your own races, share them with me. I'm sure I've missed a ton. If you found this breakdown insightful, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the sim racing world. Until next time, thanks for watching, and as always, hopefully I'll see you on the track.